Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I just thought I would work on a little bit of old world arts and crafts while I talk about something that I found hilariously amusing. And I don't even need to really make it about me. It could just be a general statement because this could apply to everyone. And it's kind of funny, you know, when you bring things up, and I try to use even myself as an example, as everyone tries to make it personal. This doesn't have to be personal. It doesn't have to be at all. This could be applied to you. It could be applied to you and your friends. It could be applied to different people at your own gym. I'm only using examples of things. It doesn't have to be about me. No need to make it personal. Now, that being said, I made that video yesterday about the Kino body thing and the fact that he seemed to have either jokingly or seriously thought he was stronger than me, and I raised those points. So he is not even in the ballpark. And a few people raised the points about pound for pound strength and relative strength. You guys do need to know they don't even use pound for pound strength in powerlifting or the Olympics, because pound for pound always favors the smallest guy possible. They use a different formula. They use a formula for relative strength, but it's not a flat ratio, by the way. And it's because the ratios don't work. They always favor the 120-pound guy. They always favor the 90-pound guy. The skinniest guy you can be, you'll always win the pound for pound. You'll always be stronger pound for pound than the guy who deadlifts 900 pounds. So that doesn't work, but there is a relative strength formula. But the question that I have to ask when I see things like this of why would relative strength matter if all of these guys on YouTube who are giving you guys advice and they train for all this hypertrophy and all this size, and if their training methods and programs and diets are so amazing for gaining muscle mass, shouldn't they be big? And that's a serious question. Why aren't they big? It's not like most of them aren't using some drugs in there on top of it a little bit, conservative amounts. So if, for example, the way that I train, low volume, one set, relatively heavy weight, sometimes really heavy weight, and again, the volume is very low. I only train 3 days a week. If my training style is so horrible for size, then I shouldn't have tremendous amounts of muscle mass. And if guys like Kenobi, was it Kino body? I'll never get it right. It's so confusing. Because I always think of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But if their methods, all this volume training that they do is so amazing for size, they should be bigger anyways. Why would anyone need to compare relative or pound for pound strength? Why? They should weigh more and have more size anyways. Some people say, well, no, because they have less fat, so they don't weigh more. So you're telling me that someone who has more fat and less muscle, because their training isn't geared towards putting on maximum size, so they shouldn't have more muscle. So just having more fat and less muscle is going to make you dramatically stronger than someone else by default? So why are we comparing relative strength here at all? Where does this even come into the equation when you're comparing YouTubers? I understand that in a competitive environment, pure strength athletes, there are weight classes. There are Wilks scores. But there are also those who argue that strong is strong at the end of the day. That even if someone weighs 100 pounds less than you, but you bench 90 pounds more than them, you're stronger than them at the bench press. Some people would argue, and this is a different philosophy, there's different points of view here, and that's the beauty of stopping and thinking and being an intelligent person, is that all of you have the ability to realize that you can actually see the different viewpoints that exist. That it is possible to understand other people's viewpoint. But there is a viewpoint that says strength is strength. Why does body weight even come into the equation? Meaning you guys watch Game of Thrones and you see the strong man there who, I forget his real name. It's this, I can't even pronounce his name. It's this Icelandic name. But he comes on there and you look at him and you go, yeah, he's strong, but he weighs a lot. I mean, does anybody see that guy and think that, yeah, but it's just because of his size? Or do you go, that is a strong ass motherfucker. I wouldn't want him to put his hands on me. I wouldn't want him to pick me up and throw me towards a wall. When push comes to shove, strength is strength. The only disadvantage you run into for any sort of real world activity with true strength like that is that conditioning might suffer, because their heart and lungs can't keep up with that much mass sometimes, so maybe they don't have the best endurance, they don't have the best conditioning, they might gas out in many real world situations faster than a smaller guy. Now that's a valid criticism. That is a valid criticism, but you don't ever say, well, he's strong, but his relative strength isn't that good because he's, 380 pounds. No, nobody says that. No one views the world that way. They might just argue his conditioning might not be the best, which would be, valid criticism. But this idea that comparing people who aren't in a competitive cross-class environment, well, yeah, but you're stronger than someone else because you weigh more, even though they train in a way that's supposed to make them bigger. Well, clearly it's not, because if it did, then they wouldn't be worried about comparing. They would be the bigger guy who's saying strong is strong. Relative strength is only a term tiny guys use to justify being tiny and feel better about being tiny and weak. That is the other argument people make. So if these guys actually were doing everything effectively to get big, then they wouldn't be the ones caring about relative strength. They would just say, well, I'm bigger, so I should be stronger. And that should apply to even high rep work, by the way. Bigger muscle is capable of generating more reps with the same weight, all other factors being equal. Or capable of doing 10 rep sets with a heavier weight. Again, when leverages and neural efficiency are equal, the bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. That is an absolute fact. So, why are we talking about relative strength unless there's something wrong with what these guys are doing and they're not getting big? Could it be that irrespective of how much they think their training is fantastic, when you have guys who do intermittent fasting all day and try to stay ultra ripped year round, that they are basically just anorexics? Could it just be that they're small and weak because they just don't eat enough to gain muscle mass or gain strength? Because again, they use starvation methods year round. Just throwing out another possibility, and I think that's very much a possibility. When you see these guys who stay ultra lean year round or real lean, who never gain any strength because they're doing it without using large amounts of drugs. They're using drugs generally. No one puts that much effort into their body without using drugs. That's also reality. No one obsesses enough to follow a 6-hour eating window year round to stay ripped without putting drugs into their body, because they know they'll get a tremendous advantage from it. But they just might be using conservative amounts, and conservative drug users don't get big and strong while staying ultra lean year round. Again, a little bit of reality there. Let's just cut the bullshit. Let's just have some real talk, how the real world works. Not this land full of fairies and unicorns that everyone tries to sell you. So, I hope people like this don't come back with, well, relative strength because you weigh more than me. I'm like, well, then why? Why do I weigh more than you? If your training methods make you big, why aren't you big? Valid retort. But it also does come back to that point of, when you're talking strength, relative strength isn't accepted by everyone, even in the strength training world, as being a valid thing. A lot of people disagree with the relative strength. They would simply say, well, you are only worried about relative strength because you're tiny and you haven't put in the work or the food or maybe even the drug volumes to get big. And you want to make excuses for being small. Just like people will say, I make excuses, or other people make excuses for being fat. You know, guys who train 5 days a week talking about wanting to get bigger and gain muscle mass, if they're not gaining muscle mass and they're not big, what is their excuse? Because it's one thing if you don't want to get big. Totally understandable. Absolutely understandable. Not everyone wants to be big, and that is a valid viewpoint. I can understand that. I totally agree with that and get that. But don't claim that you're trying to gain muscle mass and get big if you starve yourself and you don't do heavy ass barbell work and get truly strong, because you are lying to yourself and you're lying to others if you honestly believe that you're trying to really gain significant amounts of muscle mass and you're not willing to do what it takes to get bigger. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.